Hello friends, well we have another special evening with Book Club Babes. You know, once a month we meet and we're always reading something new and exciting, and we have some information on this book which we'll share with you. My name is Debbie Catenacci and I'm with Dear to Be Curious with my co-host
Sherrill. Now, in all honesty, I have to tell you that I struggled. The first 30 pages of this book, I really struggled with. But it was worth going on.
It was worth pushing through, but it was a struggle.
It was a struggle.
It was kind of heavy in the beginning.
But it was a Good Morning America choice. So Book Club Babes decided to give it a try. But toward the end of the book, it really was much more profound. And there's a paragraph in it that I want to share with you.
All right.
Because it says a lot about how we live our lives today. Okay, here it goes. I had to put my glasses on. You could eat in the finest restaurant, which we are in a wonderfully fine restaurant tonight. You could partake in every sensual pleasure. You could sing on stage in Sao Paulo to 20,000 people. You could soak up whole thunderstorms of applause. You could travel to the ends of the earth. You could be followed by millions on the internet. You could win Olympic medals. But this was all meaningless without love. That really was profound for me.
Yes,
How,
it is profound.
you know, they say the meaning of life is to love and to be loved. And the book was a lot about that.
It was, and it's about having friends, not just love in a romantic way, but friendship,
Right.
self-love, self-care, self-analyzing, deciding what path you would like to choose in life.
Right.
Because
That
there's
is
many
true.
choices.
Well, but stay tuned because it's going to be a really, really interesting discussion with Book Club Babes, because I think that some of the ladies will probably not like the book and some of them are going to be quite moved by it. So I can't wait to hear your opinion. So stay tuned for a really interesting discussion.
So in discussing the Midnight Library, I was intrigued by the premise of parallel universes and quantum physics and quantum mechanics. The character, I don't know that I loved the character development, and I did not really relate to the protagonist, Nora, because I'm probably more of an optimist than a pessimist. And so it was hard for me to kind of wrap my head around how someone could be in that space where they wanted to end life, because my worldview is as long as there's life, there's hope, there's change, there's opportunity. And so that was my perspective. I believe that everyone has a destiny, and you may not know what your path is, but I feel that people are placed in your path to teach you lessons, whether they're good lessons or bad lessons. Everyone, you know, the French say it's like la comédie. You walk along until you fall into a hole, and then you pull yourself out and you walk along again. And that's what life is. It's peaks and it's valleys. So for me, in retrospect and hearing stories of people that have had those feelings, I'm empathetic and feel heartbroken that people can feel such incredible despair that they would contemplate ending life, which is God's most precious gift to humans.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, and I think the whole concept of our book of regrets, and the fact that she went and lived back all of her regrets and determined that the life she was actually was living was a good life. Right. Because when she saw how every life was going to play out, in the life where she was an Olympic winner, she became a public speaker, and her father had an affair with somebody, and her mother's love for her husband fell apart. It's like these things that we think are important, it turns out that we actually are living our best life
Right.
right now. And this thing that she tried to quit, which, again, we all found challenging in the beginning of the book.
Yes.
I'm an optimist. I don't want to listen to 4 chapters of suicide. But this book was 4 chapters of her desperation and the end. And it was 17 more chapters of, I did the right thing. This life wasn't going to be it. So it was challenging in the beginning, I agree. The one thing I liked about the book was the fact that it gave me an opportunity to think back on my own life. Had I married this man? Had I done this? Had I done that? Had I done this? Where would this have led me? So what we think of as purgatory between heaven and hell, the idea of purgatory being a midnight library,
That was a great.
That's interesting. That you would call it that.
well, that's what it was for me. This is, when I explain this book in 30 seconds to people, to tell people why I like the book, I had to say, instead of purgatory, this was a moment of reflection. But the woman kept seeing Ash over and over and over again. There was a man she kept seeing over and over again. And there was a soul traveler who went life to life to life to life.
Hugo.
So when Hugo.
He
So,
was a slider.
so when she was able to slide, she got exhausted. The exhaustion that came with this exasperation that came with the Midnight Library.
But see, in that aspect, there was a point where I sort of checked out because I felt that the author, looked up, a chat GPT and said, give me 50
I didn't like that.
occupations and threw that into the book.
I hated
And
that
I
chapter.
was like,
that
are
was
you
the worst
kidding?
part of the book. Where she said, I could have been a cook, I could have been this, I could have been that. Shut the, you know what up.
And she never wanted to be a fashion
No,
designer.
no. There were parts of this book which they could have left out.
Or writer. She never wanted to write novels, right?
Well, and I didn't like how when she got to every life, she didn't know where she was. Enough of this rolling through the meadows.
It got
I wish she
repetitive.
would have ended up in the life she was in with a memory of the life. I didn't like this whole, I don't know where I am. I'm a deer in the headlights. Enough. I'm not a stupid reader.
Right.
Just arrive in this lifetime with the entire memory of this life. I didn't like this whole, I don't know who I am. I'm going to have to figure it out. I'm like, exhaustion is running over me.
I thought it worked a couple of times.
I expected more from the author, quite frankly.
I'm going to look this up. I'm sorry, because I instead of writing down the quotes, I took pictures of them.
There were some good philosophical
There was some great
philosophical
philosophical
quotes.
quotes, and there is one about that we use in the intro about you can travel the world, you can eat at the finest restaurants, you can experience everything, but if you don't have love, it's all pretty meaningless.
I copied
Yeah.
that one.
Yes.
I even highlighted things I was trying to
Yes,
copy. Debbie.
but there was another one, and this is really about, and I think
How
I
do you
know
highlight
people
on
like
Audible?
this.
I bought the book.
You can record.
Right.
Oh.
She did. The author quoted Perot quite a bit.
Yes.
Did you notice
She
that?
did, yeah, she did.
And there was one thing about, and I thought this might be how Nora ended up, but I don't think so. I never found the companion that was as so companionable as solitude. That really struck a note with me because since I lost John, I live alone. I don't like solitude. But then I talk to other people that live alone.
It's very zen. It's
And-
getting
and-
yourself
and
in
they-
a zen.
and
I
they
love solitude.
And they love solitude.
And is that really about solitude or is it about self-love?
I'm not sure.
Maybe a
That
combination.
is a good question.
Oh,
Because
that's
I
a
don't
good
find,
question.
when I'm writing a book, I guess I'm in that zone. But just to be continuously, and I understand Nora's feelings because she had nobody that cared whether she lived or died. You go home, if you fall and crack your head, who's there to say, oh my God, call the ambulance? And to other people here, like Denise, who has lost a mate, it is like just somebody there, somebody that you know has your back, that you know that they love you, that unconditional love. And there's another quote about, as I just mentioned, about how you can do all these wonderful things, but if you don't love and no one loves you, then it's kind of meaningless. And And I think that finally Nora, on a level, realized that, and it's self-love, and she certainly loved her brother. And I love the last scene with the chessboard. And there was another quote, you guys probably underlined it, when the librarian says, as long as there's one chess piece
Right.
on
There
the
was another
board,
choice.
then you have choices and the game is not over.
Exactly, and that's
And
how
I
life
love that.
is. You always
I-
have choices. It's like sliding doors, you know. I mean, everything. One infinitesimal moment, you know, could change your life. You just get on a train, or you don't get on a train.
Right.
You sit at a bar next to someone, or you get a table immediately.
Sort of like how you met Scott, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So tell us about that. What did you think of the chess game, Debbie?
I really enjoyed the chess game because it is all about the next play. And if you have the clarity and the focus and your cognitive ability, you can plan it out and be strategic. And if you can't, then it affects you in a negative way. I also enjoyed a couple of things that they were saying that I underlined, which is never underestimate the big importance of small things. Miss Elm had said, you must always remember that. The small things, which is true because, you know, I mean, you could just take it back to the simple things of life, you know, waking up. Did you make your bed? Did you brush your teeth? Those little things, the self-discipline, the self-love, it all adds up. So I really appreciated that. But on a completely different note, of course, every book we look at, I always have to look for Chicago. And I found Chicago in this book as well.
Really?
So Chicago was on page 162 and 163. And they referenced Chicago. Well, bit of a contrast to Chicago. Why? What did I do in Chicago? And that's all I'm going to give you because you got to read the book. But the first 30 pages were very heavy. It was deep. It talked about suicide. And we have had some conversations about mental health with Julia and Sherrill and I. And I've actually written, and I should have brought some of my prose poetry from stories that I've heard from people. I put them into prose, and some of them are deep and dark, and about suicide, and about the darkness, but also then the lightness. So it was a very good book, lots of philosophy. I love those traditional classic quotes that were implemented in here. So it's worth to read, and it's interesting to think of yourself as like a slider, to slide into these different things that could have happened.
I think,
I'm sorry.
I think I'll just quickly ask everybody at the table. I think the theme of this book was choices.
Yes.
Do we all agree?
Yes.
Which is sort of
The little
essence
things
of
make a
life.
difference.
You make your own good time. Period. Everyone has ups and downs. You know, that's the nature of life, and it's how you choose to view your life. If you focus on the negative or you focus on the positive. Do you dwell on the past? Do you live in the present? Or do you look forward to the future? It's everyone makes their own choices. So for me personally, I have no regrets. I've had not a consistent path of everything being wonderful in my life, but I feel from every corner of adversity that I've had, I've learned from those experiences and I've grown. But that's just me personally. So for me, it was hard to identify with this particular character.
There is no question that you are the antithesis of this woman.
Well, but not only that, I mean, in terms of the book as a whole, there wasn't any character development really with any in-depth character development of any other character. There were tangential characters. So It was not a favorite of mine, although I liked the scientific aspect of it, the metaphysical, the philosophical, the multiverse aspect, because that gets you thinking. But other than that, it was, for me, a disappointment.
I read it twice. I loved it. I like when I can read a book twice, because you read it once, you get the story. You read it twice, you get more detail. What resonated with me in this book is the importance of purpose. You need a purpose in your life, and that comes back to why she was ready to kill herself, and why we all need a purpose. And so, I just want to. My last 2 cents on the importance of purpose.
We love Miru.
That's delicious.
Wait,
So,
I've not heard of this place.
I'll go back there
The
anytime.
11th floor. The 11th floor.